All right, so I just pushed the live button, and we're back. It's Friday. It's the Friday FARcast. Just waiting for the Crimis to show up, and well, we got a lot to talk about, don't we? A lot to talk about, and that's with Mars not even going direct yet. So it should be interesting. I haven't looked at the latest supposed headlines. Apparently, hey Darren, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Apparently, Georgia and Pennsylvania have all called Biden. Apparently now the media is saying that this is Biden's election, and it's pretty stinky. It's pretty stinky, and so we're going to talk about this today, obviously, when Steve and Chris show up, amongst a few other things. We're going to be talking about some Pilgrim Society stuff. As it relates to people like Mike Pompeo, this gal who is the Secretary of State for Michigan. Is Civil War 2.0 arriving in Uncle Sam land? I think we're getting real close. Getting very, very close. Very close. The same people who cried about election tampering for 4 years. Yeah, so what's really interesting is, hey, what's going on, Sandra? Good to see you. What's really interesting is that they didn't accept Trump, they being the like the left and progressives and all that stuff. Like they didn't accept Trump because of his character or lack thereof, right? That's why they didn't accept it. It wasn't that the election was rigged, okay? It wasn't. They couldn't find any of that. And even when they paid Jill Stein all that money, or at least they moved a lot of money into Jill Stein's GoFundMe account in order for her to activate the process in Michigan, of all places, they found that there was no irregularities. And if anything, they were actually finding more Trump votes. So they had to pump the brakes on that pretty quickly. So they couldn't really attack the process, although they didn't like the fact that it was the Electoral College that put Trump across the finish line and not the popular vote. And we hate that fucking Electoral College, right? That's got to go. So ultimately, they couldn't really contest the vote. Now, then they went to tampering. They went to tampering with the election. Now, they didn't go into the tampering the vote. That's not what they were trying to pin on Trump. What they were trying to like collude and kludge together is the fact that that Russia had gotten into the alternative media and then began to spread disinformation and use their programs and their Cambridge Analytics or whatever to begin to sway people psychologically to vote for Trump and not vote for Hillary Clinton. But it had nothing to do with the actual election itself. That was kind of, well, for the most part, pretty bulletproof, especially once they had Jill Stein jump in and, start to do their little pantomime digging around. And it was like they had to abandon that ship. This is different. This is very different. And I think it's going to be, if this thing holds up, and everything certainly appears to look like Trump is not going to be able to rally the support that he needs in order to bring out these massive irregularities, just massive. And, we'll go over some of them when the Crimis show up. But there's absolutely no public support whatsoever, really, except for, I was watching Victor Davis Hanson on with Tucker. By the way, Tucker's days at Fox are numbered. They're just completely numbered at this point. no matter what happens, I don't think. I think Fox has shown their true colors. Paul Ryan's on the board of Fox now. So I'm not sure how much longer Tucker will be able to stay at Fox News, both from a Fox perspective and from a Tucker perspective. And if this thing does go the way that it looks like it's going, then what I would do if I was Trump and Tucker Carlson and any number of other people is I would start a new network. I would, and it should have been done when Trump was in office anyway. But that's what I would do. And I would start a new network and I would put Tucker Carlson in charge, and it would be like the best of the best. And Steve Bannon and Tucker, as long as, most of these people aren't in a prison camp by that time. Let's bring the Crimis in. Hey, what's going on, kids?
Can you see us?
All right, can you hear us?
Oh, man, that mic is something else.
It's
Too
much.
loud?
It is.
Just handsome?
No, it's happening. I can hear you really well.
Works? Okay.
Okay, good.
However, seeing you now is a little.
I know. We tried to.
We tried to squeeze.
Oh, that's better.
All right, that's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
Better.
I want you to know Steve worked long and hard to get this set up.
I feel the Lelouch elves were out today. The techno bastards were out trying to flummox me at every moment, trying to get this set up.
I had to calm him down, Robert.
It's good. I can see how you two help each other and support each other in ways where sort of fits, right?
Righto.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was today, this morning before I came out here, I was kind of peeking out into the backyard and I was looking at the garden. And I saw this squirrel, and he started over here, like kind of where I am. And I was like, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? I'm going to watch this squirrel. And so, right? And he starts to like get closer and closer. And I got a couple of raised beds. One is raised higher than the other. And he kind of looked at the high one. He's like, I don't know about that. No, he's like, I don't know about that. Let me go over here and let me check this out. Oh yeah, I think I can handle this. And so he jumps up into the lower raised bed. And I'm like, you little shit. So I went out here and I threw an apple core at him. And I said, next time you're out here, man, I'm getting my BB gun. You better stay away. So I'm not, I like the little guy. I mean, he's cute and everything, but I am the apex predator in this garden for now.
We do have a friend who would put him in a pot.
In a pot. Yeah.
Pot.
Yeah.
Squirrel stew.
Forsooth.
Yeah. May come down to that. Who knows? Where things are headed. How are you guys doing with everything?
Yeah, we're up and down. Let's just say that.
It's really hard.
Actually, I think all in all, we're doing okay.
Yeah, I think maybe.
Just like you talked a little bit about it yesterday. You got to just plow through everything every day. You got to bake your manna fresh every day because ain't nobody baking it for you. So,
it's really unusual. I mean, maybe not, but it's unusual. It's like when the coronavirus thing first hit, it was like, wow, this is something, right? Mm-hmm. And for maybe the first 4 or 5 days, I was really trying to kind of adjust. It was like being moved into a hyperbaric chamber or something like that. Good. And then I kind of adjusted to the pressure and the altitude. And then it was like, okay, I'm in this space now and I can navigate it. And I feel like the same thing has just happened over the last few days.
Yeah, I do too.
Because when Tuesday night, like when we were in the live stream on Tuesday night, it was very unusual because it was like, wow, man, Trump is really kind of kicking ass. But the deeper we got into the night, things started to change a little bit. Right. And I clearly remember Steve Bannon really trying to get some clarity from Richard Barris on certain things. Because I could tell that Steve Bannon was concerned on some level. Like, can you give us like a sense that this is headed towards where we think it's headed? And this Barris kid, did you see any? Were you there in the show on that night?
We couldn't bear to watch that night. We were just too raw, and so we watched movie.
We stopped in a little bit though, but yeah, that mostly we just checked out.
It was too much.
So I was impressed with this Rich Barris. I thought he was really, really good.
Okay.
And he knew this stuff inside and out. He knew the demographics of the counties and everything.
Well, who is he and what's his
Steve
function?
Bannon, right?
Yeah, so Rich Barris is this young guy. He's a data nerd, and he's kind of he's a pollster.
Okay.
And it was like his comprehension of all these various counties, whatever state it was. Like he knew what was going on sort of demographically in each county and how many votes were left and what the population was. He was very impressive. And I thought, wow, okay, this guy's got a handle on this. But I remember going to bed that night and thinking, I didn't like the way things were starting to turn right around midnight. And then when I woke up the next day, I was a little, let's say I wasn't surprised that something like this would happen, but I was shocked at the velocity of it.
Yeah, and the wide openness of it too.
Yeah. Well, the wide openness of it, we learned into subsequent hours, right? But the absolute rapidity, it's just like that. You look at the graphs. It's just straight up.
Yeah. In retrospect, you can see how they were laying the groundwork for it, though, with Pelosi saying if no matter what the results are, Biden should never concede under any circumstances. Right. So they were laying the groundwork. So you knew they had something really, really big afoot.
They've been laying the groundwork for 4 years. This is all part of a continuum.
Yeah.
And they knew that it was going to come down to the election, and they were going to do everything in their power to disempower Trump. And they had all their agents in place in order to do that, every step of the way, so that ultimately, by the time the election rolled around, he would have, all these critics lined up, and the exits would be closed off and covered. The social media stuff, they had no idea, I think, in 2016, what a huge role it would play in terms of getting people kind of up to speed on things, and they made damn sure that was not going to happen again.
Right.
And right out of the gate, right, it was yesterday. Bannon's show was banned from YouTube. Off
the air. Yeah.
His broadcast platform
Wasn't
on
he
YouTube.
Like in the middle of a broadcast?
Yeah. Now apparently it's just that show. I don't know what's happened since then.
He's not on today. He was on yesterday. We watched him.
Actually, Ann just sent us a link where you can find him.
Yeah, you can find him but you can't find him on YouTube. I think he's off YouTube.
So if you have Roku, you can find him on Voice of America, which is a live streaming channel on Roku. Okay. And I think you can also find him on Newsmax, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we don't have that. We have a very simple Roku setup, but we can get him. We can get
him.
Website.
Well, all Rokus have streaming channels, even if it's simple. So you just have to go into streaming channels on Roku, and you'll find it.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we have that downstairs in the apartment
and on a computer.
Okay.
So it's streaming channels. But they totally took him off of Twitter, and I think probably within the next 4 to 5 days they just may take Trump off Twitter. Period. End of story.
What they did, they just completely obliterated his Twitter. They blocked him out.
They blocked some individual ones.
Twitter.
But they're talking about taking him completely off. Well, this is complete game on, complete censorship. And, a lot's at stake here.
What's it say when you can censor the president of the United States, a sitting president?
Right. It's almost always in revolutions the other way around, right?
Yeah.
The tyrant censors, takes over the opposition TV stations. And, so this is, again, another Gemini inversion of the typical thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, absolutely.
Was it you who said the other day, Robert, about, they should just go in and put handcuffs on Jack Dorsey?
Yeah.
Was that you?
Well, so I was echoing Steve Bannon. And
Like,
I would say
that-
absolutely.
yeah, I think that's absolutely appropriate.
Yeah.
These guys are, transnational. They believe they're above the government, and apparently they are above the government.
Well, and my other thought was either that or tax them 10 cents a tweet.
I like that idea.
You
I like
know?
that idea. But there, I don't know if that would ever get past anybody in the Senate. It's interesting now to basically watch the metaphorical knives come out for Trump. They're happening, right? It's just like, how they set that whole ritual up when they did Julius Caesar in the park and Trump was Caesar.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beware the Ides of November now.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I watched Trump last night give a speech on TV. I did not like the body language. I did not like the tone. I didn't like the fact that he was reading basically from something that somebody had written for him, which is not very Trump-like in a lot of ways.
Right.
And I don't know how many cards that they've got left to play.
Right. So it's hard, and it's hard to believe if you want to get into the Steve Pieczenik thing that came out last night on InfoWars.
Yeah, we could talk about the watermark ballots, the isotopes, which I think is quite possible. It's a reality. I think that's quite possibly a reality.
And besides the fact that it's the only thing we've, hopeful thing we've heard in a while, if that is the case, I guess my question is that don't the states print the ballots individually? I mean, that's kind of, so how would you attain that? How would you be able to get a watermark on all of them?
We sent that link to a friend, and she wrote back and said, just kind of cautious about that because the states print the ballots, not the feds. So, and Pieczenik is, do you go with Pieczenik? Do you not go with Pieczenik? I don't know.
I mean, Pieczenik is, look, if somebody is in the know, it's going to be Pieczenik. This is a guy who still to this day considers Henry Kissinger a friend and a mentor.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
should we at least explain, maybe not everybody knows what we're talking about with the watermarks on the ballots. So just for edification.
Go ahead, Chris. Break it out.
Well, apparently what the thing is that each ballot, as it's printed, has a watermark and an isotope that can be traced. So they can identify actual legitimate ballots and find where they are.
Encrypted with blockchain.
Yeah. So that's it in a nutshell. So Pieczenik is saying that that's the sting operation, that it's been set up as a sting for the Democrats so that if they try or when they try to take the election, there is a way to say, halt, no, we can identify actual ballots that are legitimate and we can find where they are. So if they've been stolen,
do you see this? Do you see this?
Mm-hmm.
So they're already delegitimizing it, right? Disinformation, QAnon material.
Oh, sure. Well,
yeah,
of course.
yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course. Though QAnon hasn't posted in about 5 days, so it's hard to blame them.
So they're I'm sorry, Chris, I interrupted you, but theoretically, it is a non-radioactive isotopic watermark on each ballot. So each ballot should be able to be either counted with that watermark or not counted. And the ones that aren't counted should be tossed out. That's what it's about. And they should be
able to find if they were stolen or, damaged or in some way. They should be able to locate where they are. Does that sound right?
Right.
Yes. Yeah, theoretically, right? So now that would, I guess it would be something along the lines of a ballot having kind of an RFID signature with the isotope, right? You'd have to be able to pick that up. And theoretically you could.
Apparently it's a very, private wavelength that
Yeah.
Only the manufacturers know how to access.
Yeah. So Uncle Glenn brought this up, and he says Trump has no backing from the Republican Party. He's a man on an island surrounded by sharks.
No.
I would say that that's probably pretty true.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Last man standing is what I wrote to someone this week.
That's okay. There's always Russell J. Gould.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Right.
This is his moment. Russell, if you're
Russell to
listening,
the rescue.
Russell J. Gould. This is your moment, brother. Get that flag. Take it. Take that flag. Take it all back.
Turn it up the hill.
Yeah. So yes, the options are getting very, very limited here.
Yeah, they have been for some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, right. So I mentioned, just take it for what it's worth. I think I mentioned in the chat room yesterday. So, I do dabble in dowsing, and it, has tended to be fairly accurate. When you're dowsing for the future, of course, you're dowsing for the future in the present, right? Which gets back to prophecy in a way. But, so you're dowsing for, given the conditions, this will be the future. So in 2000, at when the Bush-Gore was going up for grabs, I dowsed and asked if Gore was going to be would win the election, and I got yes, he did win the election. Right. What I didn't ask if he was going to become president. Right. So you have to be very careful with your questioning. So this time I asked that question vis-a this direction, and what emerged was that Biden will declare victory, but Trump somehow will be inaugurated for another term, for a second term.
Yeah, I don't think that that's too far out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, he's going to be declared president.
There's a lot to play out here still,
right?
And there's so many indiscrepancies, and the challenge with all this is that Trump has created such divisiveness, some of which is just going to be part of the process of trying to separate the wheat from the tares, right? I mean, that's just going to happen. And then another part of it is due to aspects of his personality that people just don't like. They don't like the constant tweeting and the smackdowns and sort of the potential for ego, and like they're just not into it. People don't like that kind of character in some ways, especially if it's deemed that person somehow doesn't represent them. I'm sure if that same person represented them, they'd love it, right? Oh God, that's great.
Right, that's right.
So I think it's been challenging because he has, he's not. It's funny because he was a student of Norman Vincent Peale,
right?
Which was the power of positive thinking,
right?
And
everything's great,
and yet he is at times with that Mars on his ascendant, such a divisive character, and it's almost like it's like there's a battle for Trump's soul between Roy Cohn and Norman Vincent Peale.
Right.
So anyway,
but how divisive was he before he got into?
He was always divisive. Trump was always divisive
to a certain extent, but not.
But this probably exacerbated it.
I don't think he was ever, the misogynist, the racist, and all that sort of thing. You just could think he was an asshole or self-serving or what have you. But I don't think, those epithets were thrown at him. How can you be misogynist when you're running, the Miss America contest or Miss USA, whatever it was? He clearly loves really strong, smart women. And he's surrounded with them in the White House. I mean, they're brilliant.
I don't think he's ever had an issue with women. I mean, the whole thing about the misogyny, the racism, the homophobia, none of that exists with Trump. That's all a fiction.
Exactly.
It's all a fiction.
I don't see
but our friends who hate him for those reasons.
They're a total fiction. And in fact, God, I just got to find the right angle here because I just keep
getting
hit
we had trouble too.
By the sun thing. I'm a little shadowy. I'm the man in the shadows now. What was I going to say? So the demographics around the vote has been really interesting because Trump has had a major upswing in votes with the Latino community,
Right.
Mhm.
a major upswing in votes in the African American community, especially
Mhm.
among Black males.
Mhm.
And I think he got a 26% increase of vote in the LGBTQ community.
Oh, is that so? I didn't know that.
I mean, he across the board, all those numbers for him went up. Okay.
Right.
And he didn't lose his base.
So who did? Yeah, right. So how did he lose votes? So how did someone
Exactly.
beat him if he's doing better with the people that Yeah, exactly. The people that didn't support him before.
Right.
And
He
you
didn't
know
lose his base. He didn't lose that base.
No, he grew his
It
base.
it grew.
He
Yeah.
grew his base. I mean,
And I just read that he got more overall votes. There was more voting than there was in Obama's term when he was
Uh-huh.
voted in.
Yeah. Yeah.
More votes cast.
right. And so there's lots of questions. Yeah. So example in North Carolina, which he's apparently clearly won, but still they're not giving it to him. We were flummoxed by the fact that, okay, so the Republican Senator Tom Tillis beat Cal Cunningham, who we talked about last time with his little affair.
Are you sure about that?
Well,
I mean, is the final vote been counted?
well, it's said that Tillis beat Cunningham. That's I don't know if he's actually conceded, but as far as I know, they've given it to him. So the why and Trump. So let's say the numbers stand. Trump wins the state. Tillis, the Republican senator, wins, but yet the Democratic governor, who is a complete face mask lockdown lover. So why does he get in? Over the guy who's saying, well, who's saying first day in office, I'm getting rid of these rules.
Yeah. So Dan Forrest ran against Roy Cooper, who is the current governor. And Dan Forrest lost to him, but they're asking for a recount.
We signed a petition yesterday for a recount, but just the question remains, how do those things, especially if you consider there's 98% straight slate voting going on right now, how does that happen? I don't know, either that or people will just feel protected by.
So when you say straight slate voting, like just votes for
all red,
Biden and
all
nobody
red,
else, yeah,
all Republicans,
yeah.
So they were great. They were getting ballots that just had Biden marked on the ballots and nothing else. There were no votes for any other candidates.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because what they were doing is they were basically getting people together and saying, look, all you got to do is just check this and move on and check this and move on, because it sped things up. They didn't have to go through and, mark a bunch of things.
Yeah.
So that's how they did it. I mean, they just
steal a lot more that way.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. They're stealing the election fair and square.
But I did also read that there were
That's funny.
14 states that voted Republican for president, but Democrat for governor.
Mm-hmm.
So just
So it wasn't just North Carolina
Right.
that went that way.
or is it just these people want to be protected from the virus and they think he's doing that? I don't know.
I think that's what it is. I think they've got everybody terrified.
Yeah.
They drank the Kool-Aid en masse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the math just doesn't fit, right? You've got basically a guy who didn't lose his base and increased his base amongst all these other groups.
Yeah.
The math doesn't work.
Math doesn't work at all. I feel like it's a massive gaslighting operation.
Oh yeah, totally.
There's no way I can look at the numbers that he had at his rallies and then look at Joe Biden, who is senile and can barely hold it together and is embroiled in all this Ukraine business and China business, and brings 12 people to his convention, his rallies that have to sit in circles like a Yazidi. And
Well, that's what hundreds
you
of
need to know about the Yazidis.
Do you know about the Yazidis?
I've heard the name. What is the word?
Go
Yeah.
ahead and
Yeah,
explain the Yazidis.
Yazidis are a group. They kind of got known for the first time, really, when ISIS started taking over areas of Syria, and they were enslaving them. They follow Malus Taus is called the Peacock Angel, and they get within the Islamic world. They've been persecuted for being followers of Satan, which they aren't. But they follow the Peacock Angel. That's what they call him. and really interesting group. But in Gurdjieff's book, Meetings with Remarkable Men, he talks about these. When he was a kid growing up, he had heard these things about Yazidis can't escape if you draw a circle around them.
No.
And what they so this is what he's thinking about. So that's why we think about the Biden thing. So Gurdjieff says, and they that these kids, that's how you would mess with Yazidi kids. You would draw a circle around them, and they wouldn't be able to get out. And Gurdjieff would erase the circle, and the kid would run home. So anyway, so I just think of these people trapped in these Yazidi circles.
Every time I see Biden with his rallies and the people in the white circles, I think they're trapped. They can't get out. They're in their little vortex circle.
It looks like a scene from a weird futuristic dystopian film. It's like,
I mean, why the fuck do you need a circle? You could just put the chairs apart,
right.
So it's 6 feet 2 inches and 6 feet 1 inch.
But the visual is so disturbing to me. I look at it and I do. That's what I see. I see a bunch of Yazidi children who can't get out of their circles, and they can't. It's like circular thinking. They can't get out of that circular thinking.
Mm-hmm.
They're stuck in a vortex.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the isotopic stuff for a second.
Good. Okay.
Because let's say this is true, and that they figured this thing out and they game theoried them 5 steps ahead. Number one, how do they track it all? That's number one. Number two, the court of public opinion is apparently closed, at least for Trump. So where does that get played out? Like, how does that get validated? Because I just showed you, 2 Snopes-like services. They say it's all QAnon bullshit, right? So how does that get played out? Is it going to go to the Supreme Court? Who's going to hear this thing about these ballots, right?
Well, they would have to provide evidence. Well, they would, to my mind, I would need to see. Well, show me the equipment. Show me the science. If you want to go by science, I'm not.
Well, the burden of proof is on Trump, and DHS. So if and by the way, I don't think Steve Pieczenik would lie about that. I don't think he would lie about that.
And you know how he brought it out, saying I was only allowed to speak about it today, and he says arrests are being made now. But okay, go on. Sorry.
Right.
Well, I don't think Steve Pieczenik is above omission or crafting things in ways that look like an illusion, because that's kind of what he's. To me, he's like a military-industrial complex of Edward Bernays in some ways, and
that works.
But I don't think he would lie about this. And one of the reasons why Pieczenik wouldn't lie about it is that he's a Sagittarius. And it's hard for Sagittarians to lie. Even the most kind of depraved Sagittarians are like painfully truthful. Like Keith Richards is a Sagittarius. And I don't get the sense that Keith Richards would ever lie. And as much junk as he was shooting his veins, I don't get that at all. Like he strikes me as being very real and kind of honest in a lot of ways. And I'm sure he has secrets.
He would have to contort it in a way that it would still be true, but deceptively so. But I don't know.
Well, and this is big. I mean, this is, and if it's true, it's huge.
So simple
right?
to prove.
So it would destroy his credibility.
Pieczenik? Oh, he would. Yes. Yeah, he's like kind of like rolling it all out and letting it all out at this time. The thing, bringing it back to this astrology piece, is that you have the true node in Gemini, right? Mm-hmm. So now we're trying to, which president, who do we trust with the validation? I mean, we're really in a hall of mirrors now with this Gemini stuff, and then the ballots and the law, and it's all in decline. It's all in a kind of this really vertical descent, and even to the point where in Philadelphia, and I thought that this was something that really grabbed my attention, but they wanted to go into the convention center of Philadelphia, and the sheriff from Philadelphia would not let them in.
Right.
Okay. So I looked at that sheriff. Do you know who that sheriff is and when they got into office?
Nope.
Okay. That sheriff was elected on January 20th of this past year.
Really?
Yes. And she is, and by the way, I'm sure that there are fine people within this community.
Okay.
Within this community. So I'm not going to take a broad sight at this particular community, but this sheriff is a black Muslim. She is somebody who's connected to Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. She is the sheriff in Philadelphia. And I think she's the first black Muslim sheriff in this country, in a major city. So you can see the power of the sheriff in action.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And quite often we think of the sheriff as being somebody like John Mack, who's been right out front with this. Oh, well, now we're getting a different version of the sheriff.
So she's not a constitutional sheriff.
Oh, fuck. Well, it depends on which constitution you're talking about.
Right.
Certainly not this one. So she basically showed up and said, leave. And they had to, because she has the jurisdiction. You notice that they didn't send the police chief there, right? They sent the sheriff.
Right.
They had to. So that person was put in place. Obvious.
Right.
Obviously put in place just for this moment, just like all these other people have been put in place for a long time now.
Right, which is something else I came across this morning, just digging around, and there was something passed like after the 2000 election when the Secretary of State in Florida kind of tossed that election to the Supreme Court, I guess, and just screwed the whole thing up. And the Democrats kind of lost their marbles. And so George Soros started this Secretary of State project where they set their cap to put in place as many secretaries of state in each state to overlook, because they're the ones who are in charge of elections. And then also it was Secretary of State, and then county clerks, town clerks, city clerks, and I don't know, dog catchers, whoever. These are the people who count who are responsible for the votes, for counting the ballots.
Mm-hmm.
So they, looking ahead, however many years, George Soros started to fund this Secretary of State project, which would replace secretaries of state in these key states. And it started out like in, what are the ones we're having trouble with now? Michigan,
the
Missouri.
the woman that we sent you something about was Jocelyn Benson, who is counting the votes in Michigan right now.
Uh-huh. Well, why don't we pull her up, since we're on the subject?
Because butter wouldn't melt on her toast when you look at her.
Yeah, they all look so innocent.
Well, and this is, sorry, but the thing is, and we keep on as we're digging around for, who the people that are really holding up, they're holding up anything good happening, and it's a lot of women, that have gotten in, and I don't know what 43 is. That still millennial or something, or
she got crazy eyes.
She do,
yeah.
And she's got the perpetual smile, she's got the devil smile on her.
Do you know who she looks like a little bit?
Who?
Take a guess.
I don't know.
I'm pretty good with faces, but I'm not.
He's going to say Polly.
No.
No, got it. Can't
she looks a little like Regina.
Huh.
Yep. Same, like kind of like face size of the face and everything.
Yeah,
so I have a theory. This is going into landmine territory.
Going into Chris makes no friends today.
Losing a few more friends. I started to notice way back when I worked for New York State in the psych hospitals and Department of Mental Hygiene. You know how we always were hearing, oh God, like ad nauseum, oh, we need to get more women in positions of power, and then we'll have a peaceful world, and blah, 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 blah. And I thought, I was on board with that. I was like, that sounds really right. And then I started having the most difficulty with any supervisors that I interacted with was always the women, and it was always soft-spoken women. And I just couldn't help but notice this started to emerge a pattern in my life where the women in my life who were the most troublesome were soft-spoken women. And I ended up getting stabbed in the back time and time and time again. So this is my theory, is that beware of the soft-spoken woman, because she's like the snake in the grass. And this is what I see over and over. These women look like they look so wholesome and lovely and well educated. And where was she educated? In Oxford?
Well, she had that. I can get into that in a second. Yeah, he ended up being re-educated in Oxford.
But it's completely shattered my Pollyanna view from when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, that women would be the answer to all the ills of the world. It has not played out in my life that that's the way it has to be. So this is what I see when I see these women rise to power or being put in places of power. And they're like, you know, it's like a dark horse. They come in and they look so innocent, and then they undermine everything that we're trying to erase. So continue on with the rest of the.
Well, yeah.
So I just looked up her birthday. She has the same birthday as our good friend Steve. So
Steve, which Steve?
Not your Steve.
Crimis?
Thor.
Mercer?
Thor Steve.
Thor Steve.
Yes.
Oh,
Steve
really?
Mercer.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's it. So it's the anti-Steve.
The anti-Steve. Yes.
The anti-Thor.
There you
Okay.
go.
Well, I
Yes.
just wanted since we did a little bit of research on her, just her background, because she seems, everything about her screams connection with the Pilgrim Society, which we talked a couple of shows about. And just quick 2-sentence thing: Pilgrim Society founded in 1903 on what was called a special relationship between the United States and Great Britain. And the whole concept was to basically bring as many Americans under control of the crown. And we talked about, you know, the patent office and just one thing after another, the Council of Foreign Relations coming through that. Cecil Rhodes, who you talked about recently with when you're talking about Rhodesia, all that sort of stuff. Elihu Root is a big deal. There's a lot of people. Kissinger, of course. The two big ones who were players, acknowledged players, are Kissinger and Vulcan. Paul Vulcan, right?
Paul Volcker.
Volkner. Is that it?
There was Paul Volcker, who was the head of the Fed.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it.
Volcker.
So he was an actual member of the Pilgrim Society. So it's the combination of the press and the spying services. So anyway, and one of the things they did was they founded the Marshall Plan, another control system of money. So, but
You mean the Marshall Plan as it relates to what, the rebuilding
exactly.
post-war Europe and post-war Japan?
Right. So which corporations get the control? You know, we build it, we rebuild your economy, and this is what we want, kind of thing.
Right.
So
do you know what Sony supposedly stands for?
Nope. So no.
Standard Oil of New York.
Standard Oil of New
Really?
York. Okay, I don't know that.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So one of the things, the Marshall Plan also, it still worked. It's still playing out today, and they have a Marshall scholarship, very much like the Rhodes Scholarship. Yeah, and Clinton, we went through. What's her face on MSNBC? Rachel Maddow is another Rhodes. I mean, it's just one after another.
Chris Christopherson was a Rhodes scholar.
That's right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And wasn't he? Was he in Kathy
He's
O'Brien?
a handler.
Yeah.
He was in Kathy O'Brien's book.
So anyway, so this woman, Jocelyn Benson, was. So what happens is, so she wins the scholarship. You go to study at Oxford, and basically you're trained in this, what is quote, the special relationship. So whenever you hear special relationship between United States and UK, you think Pilgrim Society, control system. So she was there. So that's where she kind of got trained. What's her first job after? And her study, she gets a degree in philosophy, studying the sociological implications of white supremacy and neo-Nazism. All right, that was her degree.
Oh.
And then she so her first job is working for the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Oh yeah. So
researching white supremacy and neo-Nazi organizations. Thank you, Jocelyn. Then she moves on to NPR, and then of course Harvard Law School, which apparently is like the finishing school for fuckheads. Thank you, Obama. So anyway, and then she worked for the NAACP, and then before she became Secretary of State of Michigan, she was a political person, political, what do you call it? Community, political organizer, what have you.
Community organizer.
Community,
Right.
yeah, and
So-
which when I first heard that Obama was a community organizer, I thought, how nice, isn't that nice?
He likes the community.
Till I got educated.
So
Yeah.
so anyway, so just saying, so this is the way. This is a person that no one ever heard of, but this is a player from the Pilgrim Society who is in the midst and in control of the Michigan count at the moment.
Here she is.
So,
Hey, am I on speaker in your place? I'm hearing
Yeah.
echo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, where are those headphones you guys have?
let me try again with them because
We
I
weren't
wasn't
hearing
I
you.
wasn't hearing anything, but maybe I didn't have it loud enough. Hold on a second. If
Do you think
that's
it could
the
be
case.
because I have my iPad open?
No, I think
No?
it's
But I have the
no.
volume is
No,
off.
his speaker's coming out of here. Hold
Okay.
on.
Okey-dokey. I wasn't hearing anything at all of you, Robert.
You have to go into audio settings in StreamYard, and then find out if it would be like a headphone in or something like that, and click on that.
It's enough to drive you nuts. This-
Okay, so here we go. Her path starts right when she gets out of college in 1999, Wellesley, and then she Women in American Political Activism Conference, and then she jumps right into going to Oxford, and she's a Marshall Scholar, which is what you're talking about.
Plug it into the side.
Yep. And then there's the Southern Poverty Law Center right there. Exactly. An investigative journalist. That's interesting because I don't think of the Southern Poverty Law Center as
Oh,
really like a magazine. It's more of a kind of Stasi sort of organization. And then we have National Public Radio, and sounds like she was at the elbow of Nita Totenberg. And then she goes to
Right.
Harvard, gets her JD, and then she goes through the Civil Rights, Civil Liberties Law Review. She's being groomed. This woman is being groomed every step of the way.
right.
Every step of the way.
She's
So-
an expert.
So now you've got her as the Secretary of State, and you've got Governor Whitler. Well, isn't that a potent 1-2 punch?
Slam dunk, isn't it?
Jesus.
Of soft-spoken women.
I wouldn't call Gretchen Whitler soft-spoken. I've never heard Ms. Benson
Actually, I've never heard them speak, really.
Whitler is anything but soft-spoken.
Is she? Really?
Yeah, she's harsh.
Oh,
She got a harsh tone.
I've seen her face and the false smile, but I've never really listened to her speak.
So how many Jocelyn Bensons do you think we're talking about across the states?
Right, as many as they could have got. Well, I'm guessing in every swing state, at least. I think it's
They started, especially with the swing states, didn't they? Let me see.
So
Um,
this is somebody, again, she's 43 years old. I mean, this is an incredibly, from my purview, this is a young person born in
That's right.
1977. And she is a dean for 4 years at Wayne State. That's 8 years ago. So she achieved the title of dean when she was 35. That's kind of,
at a law school, right?
yeah, that's really accelerated. And Wayne State's not, the Harvard of the Great Lakes by any stretch, but not to mean anybody from Wayne State, but it's still, that's something. She's a dean at 35. Yeah.
Wayne State is it in Detroit? I guess.
It's kind of around the Detroit area. I think that's where I think Charlie Batch went. No, there was some football player who went to Wayne State. Anyway. But yeah, that's pretty significant. And then she goes from there and she moves into some company called Michigan's Most Influential Women. Is that a real company, or
I think
what is
well,
that?
she's the CEO of it, I guess. Yeah, interesting.
Uh-huh.
and then she gets into the Hall of Fame. Well, I guess she must have nominated herself.
Michigan Women's Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
And then she got in that, she get elected in 2019 or 2018?
Right, there you go. It says, well, yeah, she got
2019. So she just
January
literally
1st.
showed up for
Well,
this election.
started January 1st, so she got elected 2018.
2018. So she was part of that blue wave where they
Mhm.
were ripping off elections. They were doing it then
Right.
with that blue wave. And the other
Right.
thing they were doing during that time is that they were actually the guy that was what's her name's handler, AOC's handler, had started
Yeah, the
this
Indian guy.
the Indian guy,
Mhm.
Chuck this is his name, Chuck Robardi. Is that his name is?
Chuck
Close
Robarti.
enough,
Chuck-
yeah.
Very
Yeah,
good.
Chuck
Very
Robardi.
good,
Yeah.
Robert.
Good work.
So his idea was to get as many AOCs as possible, but he didn't just want them to be like AOC. He wanted them to look like Republicans and actually run them as Republicans. So even though there may have been Republican wins during 2018, there's a good chance that there's a portion of those people aren't really Republicans. But she was part of that blue wave, and that blue wave in 2018 was very significant. Like there were people that got put into play during that time. Whitmer is in play. She's governor 2018. So her and Whitmer show up together. They're a
Mhm.
tag team.
Well, and you have to figure the pandemic was planned, at least back then and probably earlier.
I
Right.
can read something from an article that was put out in Fox News 10 years ago. And I'm just going halfway down in the article, and it says, since 2006, the Democracy Alliance, a left-leaning influence group funded by George Soros, among others, has had remarkable success in targeting and claiming Secretary of State's offices in 11 of 13 critical states they targeted, including Ohio, Minnesota, and Iowa. Called the Secretary of State Project, its aim is to target and capture the obscure, often overlooked office and implement election rules changes that give Democrats a better chance of winning a plurality. Among those changes that SOSP calls the election protection are a loosening of voter registration requirements and a lessening of efforts to prevent fraudulent voting, according to Matthew Vadum, VADUM, a political analyst with the Capital Research Center. He says the amazing thing is that they can get the office for as little as $100,000 in campaign funding because no one pays attention to it. And they get to control election opportunities in a state. It's cheap. He said SOSP is currently targeting 3 states in the 2010 election: California, Michigan, Minnesota. In total, they count for 82 electoral votes. And then it goes on. But that gives you a sense of
It's all math.
that's 10 years ago.
It's all math.
Well,
They were doing
well,
this article.
this is the brilliance of the takeover.
Mhm.
If you want to, Soros, whoever's behind Soros, etc., is that they went through the smaller offices for control.
Right.
The Secretary of States, the state legislatures, where you can put a lot of money. Your money, you get a bigger bang for your buck. Going that way because half the time, we've voted a bunch of times not knowing, much of anything about the people we were voting for or against.
What I
It's
think-
happened.
I think how we voted in the past.
So I got to give them credit for what they did, and so now we're in we're in the counterpunch mode.
Mhm.
All right. This says from this website called ballotpedia.org.
Mhm.
And I looked up the Secretary of State Project, also known as the SOS Project. It was an independent 527 political organization. We can talk about that as well later. Founded in July 2006 for the purpose of advancing election protection measures. Members believed that the only way in which to accomplish such a goal was to devote all efforts and resources toward helping get Democrats elected to the offices of Secretary of State in selected swing or battleground
Mm.
states,
Mm-hmm.
specifically those whose margin of victory in the 2004 presidential election contest was 120,000 votes or less. And then it kind of went dormant for a while. Says SOS project has not been active since 2010, but then clearly it popped back up again at some point. Then they give the history, how it all came about with the 2000 election, how they were distressed because it was Kenneth Blackwell, Ohio Secretary of State, ruled that the
Mhm.
provisional ballots could not be counted if they were submitted in the wrong precinct, blah, 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 blah. So there's that.
I mean, it's always, to me, it's always amazing how much energy the left puts in all this stuff, right? I mean, they're like, I mean, these people never fucking sleep. I mean, you know, they
Because
just
they work on the emotional level too.
But-
You know,
but
they
they-
have this emotional.
But if you look, I mean, the scope of this thing, if you really step back, the scope of this thing is breathtaking.
Mhm.
Really. I mean,
agree.
you've got this young gal, I forget her name now, but she's going into the Sunrise movement, right? Sunrise Project. And they're going in and they are radicalizing children, girls, by the way,
I know.
in high school. Okay, so you've got that. And I've looked
Very
into
disturbing.
a lot of these foundations that have been set up and where they're funneling money and who gets it and what it's used for. Right? So you have the whole kind of foundation syndicate. You know, the foundation sort of, you know, poly crime syndicate. And then you've got even things like the Aspen Institute, which is a foundation. Well, the Aspen Institute is not a nonprofit, by the way. But, you know, I went through that list of all the people that attended the Aspen Institute in 2019. And it's like, are you kidding me? There's like at least a dozen people that attended the Festival Ideas in 2019 that have connections to Minneapolis and what happened with George Floyd, including Alicia Garza. So, I mean, you start to take this thing apart from the secretaries of state to these, you know, these grassroots movements like Sunrise, these incubation projects, these nonprofits, it's everywhere.
It's
So when
everywhere.
people talk about the swamp, okay, it's not just, you know, like a 20-mile perimeter around Washington D.C. Like there are swamp creatures living in your town. Like they live in your town.
Not my town.
They're
My
there.
town
I'm
was
sorry.
pure as a driven
Yeah.
snow.
And then go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and then doesn't this kind of underscore the necessity to go back and listen again to the podcast that we did on the Frankfurt School and Tavistock Institute and the Pilgrim Society? Because that's the groundwork. They had the long game in mind.
Yep.
And doesn't it also show us that they're taking a page out of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party playbook, for the long term,
Absolutely.
vision? You lay
Absolutely.
the groundwork today for 100 years from today.
That's
Where
right.
you want to be 100 years out.
That's right. And we've looked at this
Obvious to me
before.
now.
We've looked at this before, and I'll throw it up here again. Let's do the math. Let's go back 100 years. Let's go back to 1920,
Right?
right? And you can clearly see the events that lead to the 100-year march.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have the Soviets moving into Poland. And right there, January 2nd, the first Red Scare in the United States. The second of the Palmer raids takes place with another 4,025 suspected communists and anarchists arrested and held without trial in several cities. That's how they used to deal with things back then. The Russian Civil War, right? We have that going on. The New York State Assembly refuses to seat 5 duly selected socialist assemblymen. At least there was a push back then. Then you've got the
Right.
Treaty of Versailles.
Right?
Look at that
Jeez.
right there. Bang.
Right.
Sowing the
Dulles
seeds
Dulles
for World War II.
brothers.
Right?
Yes. Sowing the seeds for World War II.
Right.
Sowing the seeds for Hitler to come out of that really dark void, you know, and that's when the Franklin School comes
What's the next
into
one?
play too, right?
Well,
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Where?
The Azerbaijan Democratic Republic is recognized. So that's up now big time, you know.
Look at that.
And
The ACLU is founded on January 19th. See that right there?
Mm-hmm.
The ACLU used to kind of like stand for something.
Yes, and
but
we supported them for decades.
you get your
Yeah.
Paris Peace Conference. What else do we have here? Let's see. There's a lot going on.
Australian.
That's just in 1 month. That's just in 1 month of 1920.
Wow.
That's
Just
it's
one
called seeding,
month.
seeding the decade, right?
What page are you on, Robert? This is
This is
This
Wikipedia.
is-
I've gone through this before, and
Yeah.
here we have the partitioning of the Ottoman Empire. The League of Women Voters is founded in Chicago. There you go, right there. Interesting.
Well, yeah, and the partitioning of the Ottoman Empire is at the core of all that's going on in the Middle East. All those borders that they set up to separate peoples, especially the Kurdish people, but you did them all to keep people of the same tribe on other sides of borders to keep them from uniting. It was just a complete. And there was a woman who did that designing, and I can't remember her name. Some British woman who just started drawing lines in the sand. Yeehaw!
Mhm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And
I
I
f-
would
I forget
encourage
the
everybody
details.
to revisit those podcasts that we did. On 3 of them, I would say are core: Frankfurt School, Tavistock Institute, Pilgrim Society.
So this is great. So this, by the way, this is when Calvin Coolidge, I think, was president. That he refused to ratify the Treaty of Versailles.
Who was this?
I did not know that, Calvin.
I think it was Calvin Coolidge. He refused to ratify it. So
He didn't put it. Isn't I don't know. Even back then, isn't it Congress's job to ratify a treaty?
perhaps, but I think it's the president whose signature has to go on
Well,
that piece of paper, right?
Right. Well, he could. Yeah. Or it's his job to put it to Congress.
Right. And it didn't happen. That's it. Oh, here we go. Spanish flu comes to an end.
Ends.
1920.
Ends.
1920.
One pandemic begins and another one ends.
Now we got the Palestinian riots in 1920. Isn't that interesting? Got a Mexican Revolution happening in 1920. Let's see. What else do we have here? This is all really early in the year. I mean, just Polish-Soviet War. We've got the Azerbaijani Soviet Republic
Looks
officially
like it was
created.
just as jam-packed as 2020 is.
Well, it's the 100-year march.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of the 100-year march. The Russian Revolution, Russian white soldier Maria Bokhareva is executed. Yeah, so they're going to, hey, right? You put up resistance, and that's what you get. What else do we have here? Let's see. There's a lot going on.
Joan of Arc got canonized.
Jeanne d'Arc?
Jeanne d'Arc.
And let's see what else. There was something. There was the.
Mark Rooney.
There was something here about. There's a lot going on between the Poles and the Russians. Representatives of the British Revolutionary Socialist groups meet in Cannon Street Hotel in London and agree to form the Communist Party of Great Britain. You see, it's all right here. 1920 is where it all. It's like this is the starting line, and we're at the finish line.
And
Theoretically.
look, the East Bengal Football Club.
That's really important.
Yeah, I know.
Yep. Let's see what else.
The Irish War of Independence. Catholics riot in Belfast in protest at the continuing British presence.
Here we go.
Wow.
Women get to vote. August 26th. Right there. First commercial radio station begins operation. So that's the beginning of the dissemination of information, propaganda, at least via radio. Let's see, what else do we have? The NFL is established. Look at that. 1920. The Communist Party of Uruguay is founded. Can you see this? It's
really?
You got the Communist Party of Uruguay, the Communist Party of London and England. They're starting to organize.
And the United States.
Right. Well, I thought this. Look at this. Wall Street. I never heard of that Wall Street bombing. September. Was that 15 or 16?
In a horse wagon.
Horse wagon in front of the J.P. Morgan building.
Yep.
Killing 38, injuring 400.
Again, J.P. Morgan is a big benefactor of the Pilgrim Society.
Interesting.
And everything else from that from Morgan.
League of Nations moves its headquarters to Geneva. Communist Party of Australia is founded. You see this?
Australia.
Across the board.
They're
Right,
everywhere.
right. Well, they had some,
all in 1 year.
as now they have some very deep pockets backing them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let me see if there's anything else that,
Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Irish
there you
War of
go.
Independence.
Yep. So 1920,
And this is also around the time of the,
Very
or
explosive.
maybe this is at the end of the whole Armenian deportations that were going on.
could be.
I think it may have been maybe the year before, but it was about that time.
Let's see. The 8th Congress of Soviets of the Russian SFSR adopts Kolarov Plan, the major plan of the economical development of the country.
Chris's mom was born 1920.
That's right.
Mhm.
March.
The Rosicrucian Fellowship Spiritual Temple, the Ecclesia, is dedicated at Mount Ecclesia in Oceanside, California.
Is that the AOMRC?
Yeah. Anyway, you can just go back through here and spend time looking at a number of these events. And look at that. Gandhi launches the non-cooperation movement in 1920. It's a huge year, and it's part of the 100-year march, which is where we're at.
Right. So I was wondering, because the other big year is 46, right? I was wondering if you looked at 25-year intervals, if there was something with that, because 46 was a huge year because that was after
47.
This was after World War One. That was after World War Two.
1947. I'm sorry I didn't start a list, but every time I come across 1947, it was pivotal.
Mhm.
So many things were put in place that year. It's stunning.
So that would be 27 years, which is
So it's not quite a Saturn cycle. It's not quite a Saturn cycle, but it's close. It's close.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's really close. Yeah. 7, 14, 21, 28 years Saturn cycle. So you would go 1920 to theoretically 48. And then another 20 years, 1968, which is fucking violent.
Yeah. Right.
68 is the birth of the Weatherman Underground. It's a big deal. 68 is a really big deal.
So then you got like 87 then now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 88. Well, so it's 68 to 88. And 88 is 88's a transition of power. But 88, what really marks, I think, 1988 is what happens with. See, that's Reagan's last term, right? 88, and that's when the fall of the Soviet Union happens, roughly.
Right.
88, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a major transition of power during that period. 88, and then you go to 2008, and in 2008 we have Barack Obama. So that's interesting. At least in those 20-year cycles. Those are 20-year cycles.
Which are lunar cycles, 19 point whatever it is.
Yeah, those synodic cycles. So what else you got?
Well, I thought it would be good to say something about these other organizations. What is it? The 527 groups.
Let's just run through the list of the Pilgrim Society notables, which you provided.
You want to do that?
Yeah,
Okay,
I have.
I don't.
Yeah, I have it up here. So let me see. Actually, I'm going to have to. Let me do this. I have to pull it off the. Put it on the desktop. Give me 1 sec.
Find it on that.
Okay.
All right, here we go. I'm having a deja vu moment, by the way.
Oh, are you?
I've been here before with you.
Yes. Yeah, well, every once in a while.
And not about trying to, find a freaking link. Just a moment. There it is. There's the Pilgrim Society.
Okay.
I think we looked at this before, didn't we?
Right, when we did the show on it.
We started this down. Yeah. I delivered mail to Caspar Weinberger's son when I was a mailman.
Interesting.
Yeah. Out in the coast. Henry Luce. Interesting name. Al Haig. A lot of these people are they're Hoover Institute people.
Right. And when I wrote my paper on Plato took down the Twin Towers, almost all the PNAC people are either with Hoover and Rand Institute or both. I mean, just pretty much all of them came out of there, which is kind of interesting because all of a sudden these Hoover people have been coming out on Fox News on Tucker Carlson's show and like making sense, which is, scary. I'd much rather have them as villains, but at the moment, it's just kind of weird seeing them coming out and making sense on Tucker Carlson's show.
Well, I mean, you're referring to Victor Davis Hanson.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's the guy who's always regular on there. Yeah. Miranda brings something up here. I want to bring this in. She says, astrology buffs have a question. I know we talk about algol a lot, but today I heard someone call it the demon star. I think that's a misinterpretation, but they compared it to the world algorithm. So this is something that what Basaki brought to my attention because what's his name? I always forget. Christopher Knowles has been talking about this dark star rising, and he hasn't quite come out and said that he's referring to algol, but Masaki and I were talking about algol as this kind of luminary that is significant for now because of where it is in Trump's chart. It's right at the top, right in the midheaven. So, if Trump is the theoretical, father of the country as the president, theoretically, if he's at the top of that pyramid, then algol is coming right through him to the rest of the country. So that's kind of an intense energy to have and to deal with. Anyway, that's just an aside. And
right. But I mean, as you know, every astrological aspect has a positive and negative side.
Yep.
So there's nothing purely demonic or purely angelic.
Right, because I think that there's an interesting kind of reversal with because also it's about Minerva's head. And then
Medusa's head.
Yeah, Medusa's head. And there's an interesting kind of transference of power there and using it as a talisman in a lot of ways, to, turn, your enemies to stone if you needed to. Roger Stone. I've never heard anything come out of his mouth that made me go, that's interesting. Yeah, and I've listened to a lot of Roger Stone. Now, Steve Pachinik will say some shit sometimes. Go, wow, that's kind of interesting, right? But Bannon will say things that's interesting. But Roger Stone, I just sit there and I keep. When is he going to come up with? Something he just kind of like recaps things, and it's like there's nothing you're saying right now that I haven't figured out myself, and maybe this is just your friend. Maybe you save all the good stuff for other people. But you're not giving it up for us. So,
I haven't listened to him.
Yeah, I haven't listened to enough of him.
He shows up on Alex Jones. By the way, I got to say, Alex had, John Milius, the writer, film director. Do you know who he is?
No.
John Milius wrote Red Dawn, and he directed Red Dawn.
Yeah. Okay.
He also wrote and directed Conan. He was one of the main writers for Apocalypse Now.
Wow.
Yeah. And he also worked with Coppola on The Godfather. His representation, his caricature is played by John Goodman as Walter Sobchak in The Big Lebowski.
In The Big Lebowski?
Yeah. So there's a documentary, I think it's on Amazon, about Milius. I highly recommend it. It's a really entertaining documentary, and he's a true outsider in Hollywood. He's into guns, he's into freedom, and he was one of these people that Hollywood was terrified of because he was so talented, and they kind of needed him to translate these. He's almost like a myth maker, but he got to a point where he became politically difficult for them to handle, so they eventually wound up freezing him out. And now he can't get a movie made. He's not well. But Alex Jones had his daughter on last night. And I really liked her. I thought she was terrific. And she's been in the Trump administration for the last 4 years. Now, and now there's a documentary that she just did, which is on I think it's on Amazon Prime, And it gets into like what's happening with Trump and who these people are. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to be on Amazon, but it looked really interesting. And then they had this guy named Ali Alexander, who I'd never heard of before, but I really like this guy. I think he lives in Dallas, and he kind of reminded me a little bit of Sammy Davis Jr. in some ways. But apparently he has become like this point person for what's happening right now, boots on the ground in Arizona, Philadelphia, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina. And he's coordinating a bunch of people who've never really all been on the same page together. So he's coordinating like Jack Posobiec, whom I don't really trust, Mike Cernovich, Charlie Kirk, and Brandon, whatever that guy's name, Mr. Walkaway guy. Mm-hmm. Like apparently they're not always on the same structure. Now he's coordinating all these people in these locations at these polling places. So like this is happening now. And Alex Jones went to Arizona last night and brought the bullhorn. So there's something happening at that level that I think is worth paying attention to. And I'd love to discuss that with you guys, because what are all these people that followed Trump around in the boats and the trucks and the cars? What are they going to do? How are they going to deal with this?
I've wondered that myself. I can't imagine with that energy. It's like a clock that's wound up. You know, in a previous life, I used to collect antique clocks, and you wind them up with that key. All that energy is bound, and then either it's going to go in a good way, it's going to unwind and just run the clock, or it's going to just break. Something's going to snap.
Let me talk about the Patriots group. So on Monday, I was I guess it was Monday. Yeah, Monday I was shopping, and there's one. Usually there's no one else maskless in the grocery store, but there was a guy, and he had 2 kids in the cart, and they were all maskless. And so I felt compelled to go over to him and and just say, look, it's really heartening to see children without masks, because that's like the worst thing for me, to see kids all masked up. And we got into a conversation. He was talking about how, that's how kids learn, using facial expressions. They're just they learn about people.
Yes.
They're just becoming automatons. With everyone wearing masks. They're just being circumscribed is the word I use all the time, because I feel like I'm being, we're all being more and more circumscribed. Mm-hmm. But anyway, and then he said, we have this Patriot group that usually meets on Sunday, but we didn't meet on Sunday because we all went out to, which was the day before, to go see Trump at, he was at an airport about an hour away from here. So we went to this meeting. So anyway, so he says, why don't you come to the meeting? And it was a group that we had heard about that we're trying to find at some point.
This is one of the great synchronicity stories.
So that was great. So we went to the meeting. And so not only do they have a Patriots group, but the guy is also part of a militia group. So we basically want to have our pulse about what's going on. Mm-hmm. So there were about 25 or so people there, and and it was the day before the election. So election, did I say election?
Day before the election?
You did.
I'm sorry.
I get it. Sometimes it takes a little planning.
Sorry, YouTube. Anyway, so but people were very, kind of nervous and about what was going to happen, but they were organizing to go watch the polls, make sure no shenanigans happened, or people were being coerced, and they have some sort of organization. So basically, in long term, answer your question, at least from here for the experience. So these are kind of people that know what's going on, know it's a long haul, and there are a number of things that they're talking about doing. All right, they're talking about running for local offices, doing that sort of thing, because Trump wins. It's not like fucking magic. Things are going to be great. And in fact, I think in a lot of ways things would be worse because they're setting. On one hand, so what you said is true about what's happening with if somehow it falls out that Biden actually gets inaugurated, can actually stumble his way up the steps and and have enough strength to hold up the friggin' Bible, it's going to be not good. But what I think was going to be worse, because the other things they set up, the fact is that it is, as far as we can tell by the optics, a landslide for Trump. And they've at least played it out. So even if Trump gets it to the Supreme Court and has irrefutable proof that the Democrats stole it, it doesn't matter to the Democrats. So that's going to unleash, the dogs of BLM and Antifa, who are unleashed anyway. Because the Democrats won't be democratic enough. Won't be socialist enough for him. But of course, Biden isn't going to be setting any policy anyway.
He'll be out in a month.
6 months by Easter.
So I think what people are
He'll be
beginning to grok is that this is going to be a long haul if you want to work with it. Now, and I think they're going to be protests but I think if Trump wins in that form, I think it's going to be at least short-term worse, violence-wise.
Oh, violence-wise.
I think if he wins, he's going to unleash that. But what he has on his side is he doesn't have the Justice Department. He doesn't have the fucking FBI. He doesn't have any of these people on his side except maybe part of the army.
I would like to think that if that were played out that way, that the violence would not be tolerated at this point, that there would be a smackdown, I would hope.
Yeah, but of who? I mean, look,
Yeah.
So
well, let's
if
start
we
with
look at the evolution of all of this, it all started with the coronavirus.
Yes.
I mean, just the recent evolution, right? We can go back and we can get into the impeachment and all the other bullshit, but really, let's just look at the coronavirus, the beginning of the lockdown, and then George Floyd. And the George Floyd stuff and the BLM stuff is really significant.
Yeah.
It's really, really significant because symbolically, it appeared as if there was a revolution that had taken place and nobody did a goddamn thing. And they took the statues down and you had all these institutions taking a knee and giving them shitload of money. And then that was it. Game over. Right? In some ways, you could look at that and just say, game over. And everything else since then has just been window dressing. And this is an extension of what was beginning then. If Trump or anybody in that administration wanted to stop what's happening now, they would have been ahead of this and they would have dealt with whatever happened, post George Floyd. But in reality, they didn't do it because when COVID hit, Trump declared a state of emergency and he decoupled the federal government from the states so that the states could handle their virus crisis the way that they needed to do that. When he did that, he did not have the power to put it back together so that he could play commander in chief and go send troops in, which is why theoretically he was paralyzed or disempowered to do that. Now, he could have ended the state of emergency. That's a whole other discussion. He could have done that. And at that point, it all comes back in, and apparently FEMA is no longer kind of running the show, which theoretically some people think they have been, and that Trump's had no power at all. But in order to have stopped what was happening with the election, you would have had to stop what was happening post George Floyd. And even before that, you would have had to got in, and I've said this, when Corona hit, you just should have shut everything down, taken control of the national media, and that's it, right? He should have said, this is a huge crisis. We got to shut the borders down. We got to close everything down. We're taking control of the media. This is massive. Yeah, why not? And
it's like people him anyway, no matter what
people could say, oh, well, he's been a tyrant or a dictator. Oh, really? You think that would have changed if he tried to play nice and bring, Fauci in and entertain his, cockamamie stories for way too long? Really? So at the end of the day, it wouldn't have mattered. It just wouldn't have mattered. Just shut it down and just take control. And during that 45 days, you just figure out and target who you need to get out. And then they're just gone. They're gone. And when the lights come back on and before the networks come back on, you sit down with CNN and you sit down with MSNBC and all the major networks. You say, would you like to have your networks back? Would you like them back? And they say, yes. Okay, here's what's going to happen. We're firing about half of your people. Just like how Ronald Reagan fired all the frickin', air traffic controllers when they were on strike, just replaced them all, right? They thought they were indispensable.
That's right, they did.
Right? And you said, yeah, we're taking out, we've already gone through every individual in your companies, and we know who we want gone and we want them replaced, and we have replacements ready. And you have to agree to this, or else you're not coming back on. That means your revenue goes away. Yeah. I'd make a fucking great dictator, wouldn't I?
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's it.
Benevolent one.
Benevolent. Look, you make tyrant. Tyrants aren't always, they can be benevolent or malevolent. But yeah, and
you should have done that.
My fantasy,
right?
It's so frustrating.
Right, and my fantasy, along with yours, is that another way out of it would have been to declare war on China right at the beginning, at which point you can deport every Chinese citizen out of the country. You get rid of all the spies that are in there. It would have been easy.
Yeah.
It would have been easy.
Nixon would have done it.
Nixon
would have done it.
But this is the maddening thing about Trump.
Yeah. Well, Steve said that the reason it didn't happen is because they're all in on it. And Steve, I would agree that that's probably the case to some degree. Yes.
Yeah, and remember, and you have to remember, before the George Floyd, there were protests against the lockdown.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yes.
And that flipped that whole thing.
That's right.
And then the only people who were allowed to protest were BLM.
That's
quote,
right.
Unquote.
Yeah. Another part of the Tavistock mindfuck, right?
Yeah. That's a total.
It's all one big open air experiment.
Yeah.
And they just keep, changing the variables, and adding, sort of, new elements in there to see what happens.
Chuck you, Farley. Yeah.
So
let's see. Welsh Rose said, I had the Rona cold, affected my lungs a bit longer term, but otherwise I am fine. Yeah. I mean, basically what they did is they gain of function over the common cold. That's what they did.
Hey, look, right after, last year, 2019 in Texas, I came home and I ended up getting what I could call walking pneumonia. You were really sick around the same time.
November, man.
Everybody I know who was sick. I still haven't met anybody with it, and I still have lung problems from then.
Mm-hmm.
Vitamin
D, I got to tell you,
I take massive amounts.
That is the thing, because I started to get something with my chest, and it felt like it was this costochondritis, which is this inflammation, and I was like, it was getting really bad, and then finally, I said, I got to up my vitamin D intake, and within 3 days, gone.
Good.
Gone. Vitamin D is it's magic.
Okay, is that helping you? I know you're having a little issues with your back. Is that helping that out?
Yeah, no. So I had two things going on. I like kind of a thorax kind of area thing. That's gone now. So I'm working on the other stuff independently of that. Yeah, it's good. It's good. All right, let's talk about a few scenarios here. What happens? So first of all, here's my real feeling about this. I don't think that there's going to be a way for us to let's just play this out. Let's say Trump somehow gets back in the White House. All right, the left are going to lose their fucking mind.
Oh my God!
Right, we're gonna get the dark winter. The dark winter. This is going to be the dark winter that Biden's talking about. So there's going to be that. If Trump doesn't get in, there's going to be a whole other sentiment, right? There's going to be a whole other sentiment of all those people who drove around in the trucks and the boats and everything, and they're not going to go away. Like before, people I think would say, well, fair and square. Hey, look, You know, won the election. He's our president. That's not going to happen this time.
Nope.
It's not going to happen. So we are really a country divided. And let's just say, even if Trump gets in and somehow, you know, this whole BLM Antifa thing kind of gets squelched, right? Something, right? I mean, what do we do? How do we deal? And I know they say the same thing about the so-called right or whatever. What do we do with these people? You know, we can't live with them. You know, they're not going to be a part of our society. They're going to cause too many problems. Like, what happens in that scenario? How does that thing get resolved?
Right. Well, I unfortunately, this leads to our show on the split, and that really feels like the most likely scenario from this. You know, we've already, the migrations have started. In fact, what was it? They overwhelmed the New Zealand website for Americans looking to move to New Zealand.
Oh, Jesus! Really? You want to go to New Zealand?
And right, New Zealand is
Have you
like,
not
you
been
know,
paying
is like
attention?
more anal than anybody else right now.
Let me show you. Let me show you what's going on with New Zealand. I grabbed this headline today. This is from Geo Griffin's site. Here's another one of your. Oh, Jesus, that woman's scary.
Isn't she though?
Yeah. Well, I use the word woman loosely.
Look at her face.
Mandatory COVID camps begin in New Zealand. Similar plans for Canada and the U.S. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what they have in store for all of us. And people just don't fucking get it. They don't get it. They're just happy that, you know, the big orange clown. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I've been on a bit of a roll here, but they don't get it. They don't know that this is where this is going. They don't.
No, I know.
No, and believe me, we've tried, and we keep on hearing how smart these people that we've been trying with. Yes, and to add on to that, I just picked up something from the UK. Besides the fact that there are no protests of more than or 2 people or more. Okay, so if you want to go around on your 15 minutes that you're allowed outside and wave a placard, that's the most that can happen in the UK right now. And then there was also a woman who was self-quarantining because she tested positive, but the police were like banging on our door to upload the contact tracing, upload the contact tracing app, and they're threatening her with arrest if she doesn't upload the contact tracing app to her iPhone. So the UK, New Zealand, and to a certain extent Australia, these are all what's planned for us. Canada,
Melbourne, at least lifted
the Five
their
Eyes,
lockdown, right?
The Five Eyes, and they're all closed.
Yep.
So yes, so this is what's planned for us. So that. And again, and this is not a thing that's going to, happen soon or within the year or something, but, this is what's going to precipitate a split one way or the other, whether it's going to, and where that line is. And, it's like, we feel like we're kind of on the middle of the line. I'm hoping that you are, and most of our friends are on the other side of the line. California is on the wrong side of the line. Anything in the north is just about on the long side of the line, except for maybe, a couple of those huge states with, more sheep than people in it, where, some of our friends are in Montana and the Dakotas and all that. They may have a little something going on there, but still, that's what I see happening, and I'm, like I said, I'm not a prophet, but it's just, you have to see what's in front of you. So as you said, if you see what's in front of you and and everyone's blind to it, then it gets done to you, and then you have to react to it.
Yep. And
those thousands of people and showing up at Trump rallies, let's put it this way, we're feeling like we're on the borderline between, Antifa and Christian militia groups, and I'm certainly siding with the latter.
Like, what the fuck is going on with this website, Veterans Today?
I know. I really wonder at them sometimes. What are they saying?
Yeah,
I kind of shake my head at them.
Little Anthony on Trump for his tearful acolytes. No tears for 241,000 Trump flew dead. Does he really believe this shit? Like, does Gordon Duff really believe this shit?
Yeah.
I mean, he's an intel asset. Mm-hmm. He's kind of a soldier of fortune. He'll work for anybody apparently. But does he really believe this? I mean, come on. I mean, he just absolutely hates Trump.
It seems that way.
Yeah, and then he's got Kevin Barrett, who has this truth jihad, and he wrote this article on Trump yesterday that I replied to. Yeah, so it's like Kevin Barrett. This guy's supposed to be a PhD, and he put this up on Twitter, and somebody put, don't embarrass yourself, right? I mean, here's what he wrote yesterday. So it's just the first sentence. As expected, the Oval Office nut job overdosed on Cheetos and Diet Coke and claimed a completely bogus victory at 2:30 a.m. Stop counting the votes. I'm ahead. Counting all the votes is fraud. I'm going to the Supreme Court. So these are the people that are supposed to be in the truth movement, right? Now, you may have a legitimate concern about Trump or how he does his business, but the first paragraph is just a freaking hatchet job.
Yeah.
And it just continues to go in that direction. And I left him a comment yesterday. He removed it.
Is it there?
Really?
No.
He removed it.
No.
He removed it.
Hmm.
So I've been trolling him on Twitter, and it's like,
Get it, Robert. Get it.
it's like, sorry, Kevin Barrett, you're a fraud.
So-
You're a fraud. You're an absolute fraud. And anything you've ever done that has anything remotely to do with 9/11 is just delegitimized, totally delegitimized. And we've got these people, they're fifth column people, and they claim to be, quote unquote, invested in truth. Really? You may not like what Trump has done, but to sit there and say that 218,000 people fucking died due to the flu, that's just naive. That's totally naive and brainwashed.
Even Pelosi doesn't go that far. But this is one of the tricks, and like Robert David Steele, who will just say things like, well, Cheney was behind 9/11. He said, oh yeah, and then you get suckered in.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to talk a little bit about Beverly, the woman who got stabbed?
Update, yeah, if you're ready to shift, but see where you're at, Robert.
Yeah.
Robert's still steaming. Look at him.
I think Kevin Barrett's a fucking fraud. I think he's a total fraud. Everybody does it. So I could tell you, I bet you, like who'd be like the most despicable person that I could think of on, the so-called left or the right. I'm sure they've done a few decent interviews. Doesn't make them like legitimate. Sorry. Let's talk about Bevelyn Beatty, who got stabbed.
Yeah. So you did some nice work with her when she was doing when she's mostly known for repainting the BLM signs in New York. She's a preacher, has a Harlem ministry.
Yep.
And and she had that sort of viral video where she was, as she's being arrested by the police, she's going Blue Lives Matter, and apparently the police appreciated what she was doing in their supporting them.
I loved her, man. I played her videos.
Yeah, she's great, and we even donated to her thing, and we got a thank you note back, and it was great.
Yeah, it was just for reference point and refreshing of the memory. There was that big BLM painting that was on the street in Manhattan that
outside Trump Tower, right?
I think it was right outside in front of Trump Tower in big yellow letters, Black Lives Matter. And de Blasio had police officers protecting it. I think he had like 17.
Something like that.
Yeah. So this is the woman. So then she came with some friends of hers, and they bought black paint, and they got out and they videotaped themselves splashing black paint all over the BLM thing, and then they got arrested. Mm-hmm. So she was in Washington, I guess, on election day or eve.
Look, this is the night of the election,
and got stabbed in the back,
right, by
BLM people.
Right. So we just listened to the video you just clicked on. Mm-hmm. I could summarize it if you want.
Go ahead, because I'm not going to have the volume on this. Go ahead and summarize it.
So she gave a video the next day from her hospital bed, and basically she said she went out with some people, and she said they all turned they just wanted to go out. They weren't filming anything, weren't doing anything. They turned their T-shirts inside out so they wouldn't have any, markers on them. She usually has something about
There she
Jesus
goes.
on her
There's the
shirt.
stab in the back.
Right. So they noticed a white older gentleman with a suit on walking. Maybe the guy holding his neck it was one of her friends, an Indian guy. They saw these apparently black teenagers following this guy, and she just, she knows what's going to happen. She went in there, tried to intervene they started hassling the guy. She went in to intervene. And then I guess one of the women that were a young girl really grabbed her hair from behind and started tussling with her. And she reached in and grabbed something from her backpack, but one of the other guys stabbed her in the back 3 times.
It was a woman who stabbed her in the back 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the woman stabbed her in the back 3 times. They, she started bleeding pretty badly. And then also this Indian guy that was with him got stabbed in the neck. The gentleman that they tried to help, and she was also with some of the Proud Boys. So who kind of intervened and broke it up. And so in this particular video, she's just ranting about how low, basically the youth have sunk. This is basically they've just become animals.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's healing up okay. She said the wounds they didn't even have to stitch them, but they were deep. And she said one punctured her lung, and one kind of got close to her liver. So, but she'll be okay. But that's, but she says, if she claims she's nonviolent, and I'm sure she is not violent. And
she quotes, she's quoting the Bible, praise Jesus.
Yeah.
This is a very spiritual, religious woman.
She really is.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like they were targeted. They were tracked and trailed and targeted, because if they had their shirts inside out and they had no insignias, people knew not only who they were, but where they were. Okay. So that is deeply premeditated. Yeah. Really, it wasn't like, oh, look, it's Bevelyn Beatty. Hey, let's get her. No.
She said one of the people had an empty Hennessy bottle in their backpack, and they took that out and used it as a weapon against them.
Yeah.
Right. And,
it was premeditated. Yes.
Tennessee isn't cheap scotch either.
Hennessy's
not like Dewar's White or something.
It's cognac. Tennessee's cognac.
Tennessee's cognac. Okay.
Is it?
No,
it is. Let's be clear. It is not VSOP. But I'm glad she's okay. And
so she seems like she's going to recover and whatever, and get. I guess. Well, she's from Harlem, so she's actually born in Staten Island and grew up in North Carolina. I'm not sure where.
She has an interesting accent. It's either her or her friend. I think her friend might be Haitian, who hangs out with her and did a lot of the sort of reclamation of the streets with the black paint.
Yeah. So anyway, sending love out to Bevelyn and her courage and her strength. And, she's an inspiration to somebody, to me, I hate violence.
Yeah.
And that she stepped in when it needed to be done.
Yeah, and it's cowardly.
Instead of pulling out the cell phone and filming the freaking thing,
right?
Hoping to get some more hits.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what fucking robots do.
Yeah. Well, it's clear that the social contract has been broken. We're living in a medium to low trust society, and if you don't understand that at this point in time, you better figure it out real quick. And when and I think some of us, or maybe perhaps a little more, how do we say this, located in areas that might be not as urban or suburban, and that may make a slight bit of difference, or maybe at times significant, depending on how far out you go. But people should not be lulled into a false sense of security, no matter where they're living at this point in time. Unfortunately, this is where we are right now. We have got to be able to have presence of mind and understand situational awareness. It's really important. I can't stress it enough.
Yeah. and we both, I remember, well, actually, we were both separately thinking about the same thing on election night, and if the socialists take control of the country, is this a place for us to be? As much as we love it here, as much as we've, put all this effort into making, as really as beautiful place as we possibly can here, how long is that?
Yeah, the problem is, then where do you go? I mean,
Where do you go?
And that's it. That's
the net
problem.
the net is tightening. Klaus Schwab and
Yeah.
and the Davos people, although they're having a hard time with Sweden, or not Sweden, Switzerland. People in Switzerland are not wearing masks. They're not playing around. The people
Really?
that actually live in Switzerland, they're like, nah, we're not doing that. You know why? Because they all have semi-automatic rifles.
They do. They're all trained. They're all trained. I mean, I think it right. Don't
Really?
they have you have to spend time in the army?
You got to spend 2 years in the army, and you get
Right.
a rifle.
Like Israel.
Yeah, and they
Right.
and
And you take a rifle home, right?
Take a rifle home. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're it's ironic that Davos, where Dr. Evil hangs out,
Mhm.
it was in Switzerland, and they're just really not into the whole mask thing. So, Mr. Schwab, maybe you should clean up your own backyard first before you start to
What's
try
that?
to
Birds
try to
don't mess in their
ensnare the
own
rest of
nest,
the world.
Mm.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Well,
Or-
Switzerland's
or
a real
honeybees.
interesting place.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Don't have a high opinion of them.
Between Geneva and then all the all the radical religious Reformation that was going on there.
And they share
Calvinists.
CERN space with France too. Like CERN
They share
goes through
what?
CERN.
Oh,
CERN.
CERN goes through both countries. Yeah.
Oh, is that so?
Uh-huh.
Mhm. Yeah.
That just goes through
And
hell.
isn't there more than one CERN?
Well, yeah,
There's
they're you look at them and they're kind of these interconnected circles
But
of
I mean, in
hadron
different
colliders.
locations.
Well, so they're linear accelerators, but there's nothing like CERN, at least not that we know of. Like CERN is
Mhm.
supposed to be the longest continuous linear
Right.
accelerator on the
Maybe
planet.
it's something else I got
Yeah.
it mixed up with. Maybe I'm
Stanford
mixing it with that.
Stanford has a linear accelerator,
But
but it's
And
not
they-
nearly. But it's not like CERN. The difference with CERN is that it's oval. Stanford's linear accelerator is like linear. That's why they call it linear.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
and weren't at one time they were going to build a bigger one in Texas, right?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe
But
they did.
But
We
they
didn't know
probably
about it.
ran into that. Was it that wall town that's near you, Wallville, whatever it is, where that wall is underground?
Oh, Stonewall.
Stonewall.
Probably.
Right.
that
Maybe
where
they couldn't
Stonewall
build it because
Jackson
of the
came
stone
from?
wall there.
Stonewall. Going to Stonewall tomorrow. Going to go hang out in Stonewall. There's a place called Cazadores. They're having an open house. It's a new kind of outdoor kind of hunting place. And the guy that sold me my bow, my compound bow, has a new shop there. So I'm going to go hang out and
Okay.
go there.
We're thinking of taking a trip to the Georgia Guidestones. We realize they're only like 2.5 hours from here.
Really? Yeah.
We can take a little day trip. We're hoping maybe next time we get some visitors from
We need some
Chatlandia.
visitors from Chatlandia. And we'll have a little field trip.
We'll rent a van and pee on the Guidestones.
I'm sure there have been others there that have blessed the same,
Left
Mhm.
in more.
blessed the
Mhm.
stones in the same way. I remember one time, who was it? There was a I was in Arizona, and there's a statue or a memorial where they basically killed, who was it? It wasn't Sitting Bull. It was one of the big Indian chiefs. Who was it? What was
Can't help you.
name? Hold on. Now I got to figure this thing out. Hold on. All right.
Can't start rattling off names.
Arizona.
Tecumseh.
Not Tecumseh. Hold on.
So, Chief Seattle.
No, he's in Seattle.
He's in Seattle.
Yeah. Cochise.
Cochise.
Cochise. So
Okay.
there
That name.
is there's like a monument where they actually killed Cochise. And I came upon it one day
Hmm.
in my car.
Hmm.
And hung out there. It was early in the morning, and they were kind of. It wasn't like they were honoring him. It was like it was weird. No, New Mexico territory, place of burial, Cochise Stronghold, Arizona. That's it. Is that it? Is that where it was? Yeah. Anyway, they were kind of boasting in some ways that they killed him.
Good people.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my
so
God.
so I so I peed on it.
Good. Good.
That was my tribute to Cochise. I was actually
Good.
blessing his memorial in a reverse sort of way. All right, you guys got anything else?
Yeah, well, maybe we live long enough to
It's
pee on Fauci's grave.
Crazy Horse. It's crazy. Now they're saying it's Crazy Horse. Now, hold on
Oh,
now.
Crazy Horse.
I gotta get to the bottom of this. All right, hold on. Crazy Horse. Hold on. Where's Crazy Horse? No, it's not. That's in South Dakota. I don't think so. Anyway. So what else you got? You got anything else before we get out of here?
I can tell the tale of Damocles.
Yeah, you were talking about. Why don't you relate to that, and then we'll
No,
put a wrap on this.
we'll end in the mythic anyway.
Okay.
All right. So the sword of Damocles is an expression of something hanging over your head, and that's kind of where we're at right now, suspended, one way or the other. But the actual full story relates back to Dionysius II, who was the tyrant of Sicily. And apparently, even though he had, and one of the things that Dionysius II is known for is that one of Plato's followers convinced Plato to go to Sicily to be a teacher of Dionysius. Dionysius actually wanted no part of it and sold Plato into slavery. And it was only somebody, Archytas, who a Pythagorean, who bought him out of it and bought him out of slavery. So that's a side story. But Dionysius was he's pretty much a miserable character, and he hated the fact that even though he had all this opulence around him, he couldn't enjoy it because he had so many enemies. I guess it didn't occur to him he had so many enemies because he was an asshole. But
Right.
Anyway, so one of the courtiers said, why are you so miserable? You have all, you have anything you can want, And so what he did was he took the couriers, whose name I forget, courtier, and he sat him on a golden throne and gave him, this unbelievable anything to eat, all this opulence surrounding him, and then hung a incredibly sharp sword over his head by a single horsehair.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, that is how I live. So that's the moral tale.
So okay, so this is it. So this is interesting. So I put in Sword of Damocles, see if I get a painting or illustration. So this thing pops up. This painting pops up. I'm trying to find out where the whole Sword of Damocles thing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
That looks pretty grailish. I don't know. You got like somebody in armor.
So, but what's interesting is that, okay, so I plugged this in right here, and it is right here. Let me show it to you. There was this thing. It's connected to Beattyville. Like it's some Beattyville collection.
Huh.
Was that it? Or yeah, I mean, it was weird. Hold on, where did I just see this? And we were just talking about Bevelyn Beatty and being stabbed. There it is. See right there. Hold on. Let me bring it back. Yeah. So check this out. This is weird. This is a weird synchronicity. So I just popped this thing up. And right there. Look at this. So it's, I don't want that. I want this. Can you see that? Can you see that?
What are you looking at?
This Nolan Media Group. Can you see that?
No.
No,
We
I
just
see the
see the
same
painting.
painting. See the same
hold on.
painting I had before.
Okay, hold on. I just got to get into the link versus the painting. Right here. Okay. Yeah, the Sword of Damocles, Beattyville Enterprise. Like that was what I popped up,
Huh.
and we were just talking about Bevelyn
Interesting.
Beatty.
Interesting.
and
Oh, really?
yeah, and being stabbed.
Well,
Huh.
Yeah, I know, and you've been talking about the synchronicities for a while. I don't know if this is this is not really a synchronicity, but when we were at this Patriots group, a state senator talked for a little while and took some questions, and he wasn't our state senator, but he left, and there was no where we were, there was no cell phone service. Next morning, I get up and I pop open Gateway Pundit, and there is an ad for this guy on the state senate level, and he's nobody. There's no ads for state senate people that I see show up.
Mhm.
So I thought that was pretty odd.
That is pretty odd.
That we were just meeting with this guy, and they would just show up
Never heard of him
as a political ad, on a place where you don't see that state level political ads.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was strange. But I do want to say, as we start off saying that we're up and down and all that, but one of the things that really keeps us going is connecting with people and we had dinner with Joe last night. We had a great time. Joe's been helping us with our lawn and Mojo Mama.
Mhm.
And she did some really beautiful work and
We are in her
talking
debt.
to her.
She's been so kind to us.
And just even like calling Ani or just, so it's one thing it's just a thing that just pulls me out of myself is just, just talking to people, even just talking bullshit, and talking food or whatever. It's just a good way to, just to keep your head above it all.
Mhm.
And so eternally grateful to our friends in the chat room and those we met in Texas and, cemented further with and all that stuff. So I just, that's my way out of it because, I have a tendency, I just want to hole up in my room and write and just get the hell away from it all. So anyway, I think that's how I wanted to finish up here.
That's a great way to finish up. So what is the latest with your Airbnb status? Where are you guys with that?
They keep, just putting these blocking notices up if we go to access, say, our inbox on Airbnb or the calendar. And, well, you haven't agreed to the terms yet for the COVID standards of wearing a mask and socially distancing. And when you're cleaning, they want you to wear a mask when you're cleaning and gloves. And we have not signed on to it. So they just keep popping that notice up as a blockage. And you have to say either I accept or I understand. And so you have to hit I understand. So you can even access your pages. And we have until November 20th.
So how do they know that you are doing those things in your home?
They don't.
They don't, but they will be.
don't.
But if people are expecting it and are mask fearing, they will tell them.
They'll report you.
Oh, sure. They couldn't wait. Before they leave, they will. They may not even stay here.
We don't know that, but
we don't know. There
that
would
be a
be.
guess.
I can only think of a couple of guests where that even be a possibility. Like we have guests here for a week. And they're from Phoenix looking to relocate here.
Mm-hmm.
Nice people, but
Vivi says, "What about going along but post photos of your digs with a MAGA hat in the background?"
Yeah, well, that's it. That's the way to keep people away. Or the Christmas tree might be enough.
So these people came and they stayed with you.
And they're still here. Yeah,
they're still there with you.
No, there's people staying here for a week, and they're very cool. They're from Phoenix.
They're good.
And
Okay.
They're spending a week. For the most part, it's been good. People get out of the car, they shake your
We
hand.
haven't had a problem really with the guests.
Yeah, there's only been a couple. They wear the mask, and you go in, and they give them the tour of the place, and they're still wearing the mask and whatever.
Are they there now?
Well, they're out for the day.
They're
booked for the week.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, go get them, bring them on the show.
I would if they passed by. So
I don't know that they would.
So I think it feels like if they stay to the things, our Airbnb thing is going to come to an end. There are a number of things that we're just thinking of that is going to replace the income.
We have talked. I think if you go rogue, I think you'll make even more money. That's my sense.
We have to figure out
Yeah.
how that would actually.
Yeah.
Well,
and
but there's
you know, we have-
there's a path to that. There's a pathway
Yeah.
to that.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have to, and we have to think about what we want to do too.
That's the other
You
part,
know,
right? Yeah.
because it's like all of a sudden, with in the last month or so, we're just like, it's just doesn't have the sparkle as it did before.
Well, because
we
it
enjoyed
was
it as much.
charming. It had a charm about it, and it was. Oh, it's like having a little pension, and you meet wonderful people, and
Right.
You
Right.
know,
now they kind of put the ugliness on it.
I also have half a mind to think about, teaching homeschool kids if that's a possibility. If because we've got all this crap that
You would be great.
accumulating.
You would be awesome.
and
You
we
would
got
be a
we
good
got stuff
teacher.
that no one else does.
Hmm.
So
good
I
thought, Steve.
Chris,
and
Chris, you could teach gardening and stuff, and there's a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that might be more enjoyable venue for us at
Uh-huh.
some point. So we hope that works one way or the
Mhm.
other. I think there's going to be more and more of a need for for our arcanum.
But we will not capitulate to Airbnb dictating what we can do in our home. And, the first bad taste in our mouth was that they were very proud to say they were supporting Black Lives Matter.
Mhm.
Now, part of our money that, we generate for that Airbnb corporation is going to Black Lives Matter. And
Mhm.
I'm not okay with that.
Mhm.
So that was the first bad taste. And we kind of said, oh, well, that's not great, but maybe it's short lived.
Mhm.
And then the second blow was this, and we're not going to put up with it.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's we all have an opportunity at hand
Yeah.
to transform and change
Yeah.
what we're doing.
We
Yeah.
went through 7 years up on the farm where we had like zero income and pushed every survival button I ever had that I didn't even know I had.
Mhm.
And we lived through it. And,
But even then, Chris had principles. She was working at a florist shop, and they were paying her so little that she said, "Look, just pay me more. I'll work less." And she couldn't do it, and Chris just said, "I can't work for
I'm not doing this.
I can't work for whatever it was,
absurd. It was
$6 an
absurd.
hour or some shit like
just
Good
that."
for you. Good for you.
So
It's not going to make that big a difference in my
But-
life, Anyway,
But-
I don't want to be back in that situation. However,
but you have a pension.
I'm not playing.
Mhm.
Yeah, as
not
long as
playing.
Cuomo doesn't kill
the pension system.
the state pension,
Yeah.
we'll get by on that.
I'm on the New York State pension
You know.
system and Social Security.
So,
Mhm.
but this is
for
what
now,
we all.
for as long as that lasts.
But this is about carrying the light through all this. We all have to carry our light inside us.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and
Much
that's how we
to
get.
survive.
And that's the only way we're going to get through because whatever's next is going to need that light.
Mhm.
As long as we live in whatever part we got to play.
Yeah.
If we got to hold on to the light for, you were talking about, what is it, the Generation Z coming in.
Right.
I like
You know.
I like the Gen Z kids. I think they're great. I really do.
That's the important thing.
Yeah, we've met a
Yeah.
few
Yeah.
really excellent ones, and even some our friends who have infants that are just like glowing.
Yeah.
So
They're different. Those kids are different. Those are the Pluto and Capricorn kids. I don't know what we're going to call them.
uh-huh.
Because Gen Z is the end of the alphabet.
Right. So we have
So
to do
what-
like
what are those-
hurricanes.
What are those kids going to be? I'll tell you what they're going to be. They're going to be
Omega?
They're going to be Titans.
Titans,
They're going to be amazing. These little Pluto Capricorn kids.
Yeah.
They're going to rebuild the planet. Those are the ones that are going to rebuild the planet. I think the Gen Z kids put the philosophical framework for the new consciousness.
Right.
Right,
Well,
they're the ones that come in and bring that, and then you're the Pluto Capricorn kids that come in and say, okay, well, this is how we'll structure everything.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that, for those generations.
Good.
I really am.
Yeah.
And I think we all play a part in the continuum. And each and every one of them. I know a lot of millennials get a bad rap, but I've had a lot of great millennial clients, and I think that. And millennials are an interesting bridge. The millennials are kind of a pre 9/11 generation. They're kind of the last sort of vestiges of growing up in a semi-analog world, because the earliest of the millennials, they start popping out around 85.
Mhm.
So, in 1995, the internet is really just starting to come
Just getting
online, and
going.
most people don't have much of a connection to it. So the millennials are kind of that last generation that has one foot in kind of one world and then another foot in another. So they're kind of a major transitional generation. And then, Gen Z is born and raised with access. They are the first generation that's really born into full on digital internet access.
In the baby bottle.
So,
there was a great book called How the Irish Saved Civilization that I read about 20 years ago. And it talked about when the Roman Empire was in disintegration. I guess Ireland was far enough away that they escaped the worst of it. And the monks who were sitting in the cells and, I guess
they were
transcribing books and Bible and keeping that thread alive of being able to read and write and comprehend. That act alone was a thread on which could be built a new weaving for a new civilization. So I look at where we're at right now in many ways, that we hold on to the thread of the best part of the past from the sacred traditions that we've studied in, and to hold that thread and that light, and so that there's something to build on for the next generation. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. When I look at Steve, I think of like Edward G. Robinson in Soylent Green. Do you remember him?
Right. He was the guy at the library at the end, right?
Yeah, they called him. He was the book. They called him the book because he knew he carried the knowledge.
Yeah, well, that's what the elders do.
That's it. I had to get all my books inside me because.
What is it? I have read every book.
I have read every book. André Gide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So good. So
well, guys, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you.
Thank you so much.
Same here, Robert.
Whether it's in 3D or in this virtual space, and I'll leave a link to your great publishing company.
LogosophiaBooks.com. We've published a great book last September. I have a new blog post. Go to LogosophiaBooks.com, and on the blog page, I've done a whole series of this whole Corona thing as an inverted ritual, and maybe people find that of interest. I just wrote one on an exegesis, which is a line by line reading of Leonard Cohen's song "The Future," which he did 30 years ago, and how it pertains to what's going on now. I thought it came out one of my better pieces of work, but we'll see. So I invite people to read that, comment on that if they'd like, and
please, do revisit those podcasts and share them with your downline on the.
I'll see if I can go back and find the links, and I'll put them in here.
I think they're really important, and to share them. Educate yourself, and then share them with your downline, as they say on Aim for Truth. Get that information out so people understand the blueprint.
I think the only challenge is like I think I speak for too long. Not in an interview situation.
I went back and revisited it because I sent it to someone else. I think on.
No, I'm just talking about me.
An hour in.
But the length of the videos, right? The length of the videos, I think, tends to be somewhat prohibitive. Somebody looks at a 2-hour video and just goes, "Oh God, how can I get in there?" Right?
But you don't have to do it all at once.
We know people who watch us at double speed, so.
Yeah, they could do that.
No.
But I think one of them you have to go about a half an hour in before we actually start.
But, Robert, we get to yakking before we get in there. So anyway. Right. But those are good. Yeah, I mean, we've got to actually, God bless you, Robert. Thank you for having us on for all these years. We started before Trump got into office, so we've got like 30 or 40, I think, Yeah,
we got a lot of episodes under our belt here, and then you just spun off and you started to do other things with other people. You do stuff with Emily. You've been on Randy's show and Freeman. So. Yes, it's been a nice little spiral. Yeah, we'll keep it going, and at some point I'm probably going to have to just do this for my website, and probably sooner rather than later. Which we all have to, I think about that. And it's never far from my mind. I just have so much on my plate that I have to get done, and it's a bit of a challenge, working with people and trying to plan the future. And
You're a one-man show.
I'm a one-man band, so it's not always as easy and as
I don't think it's easy at
streamlined
all.
as I'd like it to be, but we do our best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we only have a couple of videos on our, a number of videos on our YouTube channel and on our Vimeo channel, and I'm just trying to get them over to BitChute or someplace else, in case something comes down.
Yep.
Ourselves.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're here. We're here for now. You're there.
Here for now.
And,
Bye for now.
Right. And if you are interested in maybe finding out more about the Crimis accommodations, and maybe they want
Going
to
on a field trip.
hang out, send them an email, and maybe you can, hang out with them as part of the Underground Railroad there in
Yeah,
That's
I like
it.
that.
Nashville.
I like that.
Yeah. All right. You guys take good care. Okay.
You too as well.
Bye-bye,
and
Robert.
everyone
Bye-bye, everybody.
in the room.
All right.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. That was the Crimis. How about that? What a cool couple, huh? Fridays with the Crimis. I'll be back Sunday night. Astrology, right? We're going to get into it. We're going to look at where we are, what's happening with the election. We'll look at some of the players, and we'll try to hone in on some of the cycles and see where this thing is going, and what it looks like for the Supreme Court. I never got a great feeling about Amy Coney Barrett when she was appointed by Trump, and that there would be a time, where she might drop, the sword of Damocles on Trump. She's right up there, Saturn on his midheaven, and again, kind of at the same degree as Algol. So we'll see what happens there. Anyway, I'll be back Sunday night. Have a great weekend. Stay loose, stay cool, stay free. I'm Robert Phoenix. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step on what's possible. Bye for now.